Oh, hi everybody, Ezra Levant here. How you doing? It's a pleasure to be back in the studio. I've been running around like a madman, but I was going to say like a chicken with my head cut off, but I shouldn't say that because other birds are on my mind, namely ostriches, the most majestic of the birds, far more lovable than a swan. Listen, each to their own, beauties in the eye of the beholder. This is a very rambly way of saying I went to the ostrich farm in Edgewood, British Columbia. It was a bit of a trek. I got on the plane in Toronto. I flew to Kelowna, rented a car, and drove on a very windy road to get to the farm, where I was met by the most lovely people. And it really had a Woodstock feeling. I was going to say it was a little bit reminiscent of the trucker convoy in that people there were their best foot forward, people were hopeful, but a little bit worried about their country, people of different backgrounds, people had come, they're not sure how long they would be there for. So many ways it's similar to the truckers. And I'll tell you, as I was driving in, I was by myself, as I was driving in, my first worry was, will the police keep me out? Because I know the police have been, swarming is the wrong word. They have been staging, they have been preparing, they have been observing, they have been spying. And I was told that there was a police vehicle at the entrance to the road to the farm. And my first worry was that I would be kept away because I had taken a 4.5-hour flight and then a 2-hour drive, and I thought, oh please, I've spent so long in this journey, I hope they don't turn me away. And then I was immediately relieved that the police there were not yet in enforcement mode. In fact, they were in sort of friendly lounge around mode. And again, I remember that from the trucker convoy too. And if you were there at the trucker convoy, you will remember that until they were given the terrible order by Justin Trudeau, they were in friendly mode. But the real evildoers, if I can use that word, because I think what they're doing is evil in a number of ways, and I'll explain that. I don't throw that around casually, were not the RCMP. The RCMP came to talk to us. In fact, I talked to one, the official spokesman for the RCMP for about 10 minutes, and I'll play some of that for you. But you see what's on the screen right now? What is that? Now you can see some ostriches there in the background. I was standing on a bit of a hill across the highway, and you can see there's like a little tent there, and there's some equipment. So there I am standing. You see there's a road, and beyond, and that's me trying to use the zoom. And you can see the birds there. And what are those huge bales of hay? Do they serve any purpose? They have no medical purpose. They have no ornithological purpose. They have no public health purpose. They are so that when they start to kill the birds, you will not be able to see them. You see what they're doing right there? They were disabling the surveillance cameras of the farm. So let me back up a bit. So the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which are basically food police, have ordered this entire flock of hundreds of ostriches to be killed. And their rationale, they say, and look at that, they're wearing hazmat suits. All the birds are healthy. None of the RCMP are wearing hazmat suits. No one who's there is. They're doing that only for PR reasons. They're trying to make it look terrifying or something. And the thing is, they go from what they're calling the hot zone. They literally use that word in a press release yesterday. They go from the hot zone, and they don't stay nearby because the locals hate them. So they drive about an hour away to the town of Vernon, and they go to the hotel, and they go to the restaurant. And if there was really an Ebola-like scare, first of all, everyone would be wearing hazmat suits. Second of all, no one would be objecting to the cull of the birds. And third of all, they would not be going back to the hotel in Vernon. Here, yeah, tune the sound up here. This is me showing a little bit of the birds and the cops. I think this was sort of my general commentary. Put it on just for a second. And actually, can you find the one where a bird was killed? And yeah, play this one for a bit. But there was also one when a bird was killed or was dying, and they refused to let the farmer approach the bird in any way. Maybe, in fact, do you want to get that one first? It's 5 minutes long. And so basically the Canadian Food Inspection Agency has taken over half the farm. They've taken over the parts where the birds are. They put this yellow police tape around it, and they won't let the farmers tend to their animals. Yeah, that's the one right there. The one with the other one, that one you see right in the center of your screen there. Yeah, up, that's one, right there, perfect, yeah. So here's the head of the farm who was crying because an animal was being left to die alone and without any care. And if you have worked with animals for years and years and years and years, farmers often name their animals. I mean, they're not pets, but a farmer cares about their animals. The animal is in pain, is dying. It's all happening in real time. And you see that yellow police tape. They were not allowing the farmer to console, contact, ease the pain and suffering of the animal. It was dying alone in the dust. And you can see the lady. In fact, turn the volume up. I'll talk over it, but turn the volume up. She's saying to the RCMP, can you do something? Can I visit the bird? And he basically commiserated with her and said, you know the rules. I'll pass it on to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Yeah, I'll be quiet. Play for a minute and we'll listen to her make the case.
Because we did those finishes, she's dying alone. This is the most painful thing. They're right there. They're right there. We're not aggressive. We're not hurting anybody. We just want to give her love. They've been loved for 35 years by us. We would have never let them die alone. She's dying by herself because we are being punished. fine line by this tape. We're being punished. It's not fair. She's dying for being healthy. She's dying because we.
So that cop is listening to this, and he later says, "You know, there's nothing I can do." Like he was sort of nice about how he said it, but he was speaking the truth. There's nothing he can do because he's not the boss. He's like the bodyguards to the boss, who are those Ottawa bureaucrats. Now, can you skip to 30 seconds from the end? Because I was just standing there silently filming that. And then this guy shows up. Yeah, go back 10 seconds earlier than that. And this guy, instead of commiserating, he's recording. He's got a mask on to hide his identity. And turn up the volume, because I just asked him a few questions. So back up 10 seconds and turn up the volume, and I'll be quiet.
Thanks for your help.
We'll do what we can.
Please help. Please help me. This is wrong.
Are you live streaming, officer? Are you live streaming, or are you just filming our faces?
Yeah.
So why is he filming?
What are you filming for? Why are you hiding your own face?
Let's leave this, okay? Katie doesn't want that.
All right.
Katie does not want that. Think about Katie.
Yeah, but
Think
that's
about
not
her.
right.
So I asked him, are you live streaming? Why are you recording? Why are you hiding your face? What's that for? Like, literally, why did he come over and record everybody? Can you tell me why he did that? If I was that cop, I'd be ashamed to show my face also, frankly. So there's different cops, and you can see different ones of different relations with authoritarianism. Some people go into policing to be a Robert Peel type of policeman of the community, listening to the community, spending time with people in the community, really being a delegate of the community. Robert Peel said, a policeman is of the community and community are the police. It's just that police do it full time. What was that cop doing filming people? No one was doing anything wrong. Why was he coming with his face masked to film people? Like, what the hell's his problem? Who the hell is he? Anyhow, I asked if I could speak to the top cop, and they said, oh, he's in, I forget where he was, in Surrey or something. And I said, well, I'm not interested in talking to him then. He'll know less than me. And then, weirdly, they said, oh, actually, he's right here, and he'll talk to you. So this was actually the very first interview I did upon arriving there on the scene. So I didn't really have a lot of the facts in hand yet, but I thought, well, let me start with talking to the cop, because they actually went and got him. When maybe they recognized Rebel News and realized that we really are leading the coverage of this. We've done 60 news stories about it, almost all of them by our friend Drea Humphrey, who's really the queen of the ostriches now. She's well loved and well known there. Certainly her reputation precedes me, and I was welcomed as well because people love what Drea is doing. So at first they said, oh, our spokesman is far away, he's in Surrey. I said, well, I don't care what he has to say then. But then, surprised he wasn't in Surrey. That was a bit of a fib. And they went and got him. Why don't we play it? I think it's an 11-minute clip. We won't necessarily play all of it, but I was trying to be smart. I was trying not to be rude or mean because I wanted information from him. And it is a fact. He's not the bad guy here. Now, maybe he should be more of a good guy, but I don't think he's the bad guy. The bad guy are, of course, these Ottawa bureaucrats who want to kill 400 birds because a year ago, 2 of them had the sniffles. And yeah, here's my conversation with, I think his name was Kerry Clark. Let's take a listen.
Now, I spoke to some of the other officers. They're coming in from pretty far afield. I mean, it looks like a pretty big operation. Are you at liberty to disclose how many RCMP are involved?
We don't speak to numbers specifically for operational security reasons. What I can tell you is there are a number of different support units under the critical response unit here. So overall operations is conducted by critical response unit, which responds to such things as wildfires, floods, things of that nature, as well as protests. Those support services that you may have seen over the last couple of weeks, we have remote powered aircraft system, obviously. We've got some medics here, among others. So to ensure that we don't compromise public safety in any one community, we bring in officers from across the province.
It's like a pretty big operation. One officer said more than 30, and you just described other, the ambulance, which I think I saw drive by. How long have you guys been out here? Has it been a couple weeks now?
So we arrived early morning on September 22nd,
Okay.
and we will remain on site until CFIA concludes their business.
Can I ask, maybe you don't know the answer, who's paying for that? Because you guys, I'm guessing there's some overtime, I'm guessing there's some hotels and restaurants, and even if it is just 30, and I suspect it's probably more, that's a pretty big operation.
I don't have the specific
Like
where
with the
the funding model is. So.
like the CFIA, would they have contacted you, or would, like, who said, hey, bring all the RCMP down? Does the CFIA have the power to do that, or was that a decision by the Solicitor General maybe?
So to be clear, this is a CFIA operation.
Okay.
And so it's a search warrant that they've executed, and we're here at their request.
Okay.
Anyhow, the conversation goes on for a bit, but basically the bureaucrats in charge of food have commandeered 30, 40, 50 real police because they're worried they'll be torn to shreds by ordinary people if they're unguarded. It's weird that it's the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, because these birds, these ostriches, are not being farmed for food. They're not being farmed for leather, or there may be other uses for a bird. They are actually part of a test to test therapies for non-mRNA therapies for different diseases, including the flu. And one of the theories, speculation, is that the reason they're so obsessed with this is they want to kill off these birds, so the theory goes, to avoid any competitors to the mRNA vaccines. And the theory is that may be a reason why RFK Jr. weighed in on this. In fact, Olivia, if it's easy, if you could call up RFK Jr.'s letter about this, I wouldn't mind reading it on air to refresh my memory about what he said. And it's really weird. And you saw at the beginning all those hay bales were stacked up into sort of giant 10-foot high visual barriers. And Olivia, do you have those photos? I didn't capture them myself, but someone who was on the road with me snapped a couple of photos, I don't know if you have them, of drone countermeasures. Like, if anyone's following the Russia-Ukraine war, it's a drone war as much as an artillery war or anything else. And the drones and the counter-drones and the anti-drones, it's an enormous field of military aviation. And what's incredible to me is the high-tech devices being set up around the property, and something that looks like a kind of electronic gun, like an EMP gun, that the sole purpose of which is to stop people from watching what happens. I don't know what their budget is. It's got to be in the millions. To have 50 RCMP pulled in from all across the province, put up in a hotel, paid overtime, paid this, per diems, etc. This is a multi-million-dollar operation. How much have they spent on anti-drone technology? And how weird is it that I'm saying the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is spending millions on anti-drone technology? Like, what are they defending Dnipro in the battle with Russia? Like, why are they doing military style drones and anti-drones? It's so weird. And the fact that the CFIA have not made themselves available for interviews, like, say what you want about the RCMP, and there are reasons to criticize them in this case, at least the guy answered my questions I sort of ran out of questions after 11 minutes, partly because I was just really new to the scene, so I hadn't fully briefed myself yet. But I'll give him credit. He came to talk to me, even though Rebel News has been particularly critical. In fact, maybe that's why he came to talk to me, is because he knew that I was a critic, and he thought, well, if he just told basic factual answers to me, maybe that would mollify me a bit. And to be honest, it did. The CFIA, by contrast, is nowhere to be seen. And when they are seen, they're playing costume party dress up like they're in the Wuhan Institute of Virology with their hazmat suits. Like, what a bunch of liars. Yeah, just incredible. Let me see if I can find that that RFK letter. It's not that important, but it's interesting to me that people around the world care about it. So anyway, I was there for a little bit of time. Oh, there it is. Yeah, can you pump that up bigger? So this is from RFK Jr., and this was just 2 months ago. Dear Minister MacDonald, we are writing to urge the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to delay any planned culling of the scientifically significant ostrich flock at Universal Ostrich Farm in BC. Instead pursue collaborative research to study these unique animals. So let's get into it here. As of July 14, the remaining birds in the flock will have survived more than 170 days after H5N1 infection without symptoms or further documented transmission since the initial detection of H5N1. That's basically avian flu. This exceeds the documented incubation and shedding periods for avian influenza by a wide margin. This is a unique research opportunity. We propose immediate collaboration between CFIA, Canadian researchers, and our U.S.-based scientists from the National Institutes of Health and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We are prepared to offer direct access to advanced diagnostic, immunologic, and therapeutic research infrastructure to rapidly capitalize on this scientific opportunity. So RFK Jr. sees this as an opportunity. The fact that these birds got the sniffles 10 months ago and no longer do have the sniffles, and I'm saying sniffles half jokingly, but that's all the flu is, people. So he says the current H5N1 challenge will likely not reach this level of, okay, let's try, I skipped a bit. The current H5N1 challenge will likely not reach the level of crisis, but visionary leadership should strive to minimize this possibility and build useful knowledge for future avian influenza outbreaks. Animals that are resistant to viral infections or recovered from them have been essential for later in-human therapeutics and have informed our scientific understanding of influenza, HIV, and hepatitis viruses. Close study of the flock's long-term survival may similarly aid future developments of treatments and/or vaccines for H5N1 and other avian influenzas. If Canada prefers not to host continued research, the Department would appreciate the opportunity to engage with the CFIA to discuss options to perform this research in the United States. Sincerely, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Isn't that a positive, hopeful, solutions-oriented, helpful letter? He's saying, look, this is a very interesting situation. These birds were sick. They're better now. They've got herd immunity. Let's study this. We can learn from this. Don't kill these animals. They may contain secrets about how to avoid getting sick. And he says, look, we're ready to bring all our top-notch stuff to the table, which I believe he would. And then his last part is, if you guys don't want to do this, we're happy to do this. How could you say no to this guy? Well, maybe if you are literally guided by a desire to stop that health research, because maybe you prefer, maybe if you're working for Pfizer or Moderna, you want some expensive mRNA vaccine because you make a lot of money off that. It sort of reminds me of how ivermectin, which is such a wonder drug, really, that it won the Nobel Prize for medicine. And it's so cheap, like a few bucks a dose, that that public health officials everywhere said, you can't use ivermectin, you have to use these hundreds of dollars per pop Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. Well, gee whiz, I wonder what their motivation was. Anyways, I was there on location, and I really enjoyed the visit. I would have stayed if my schedule had permitted, but Sheila Gunn-Reid is on her way there. And is our friend Sidney Fazard there already? Sid of our Calgary office is there. He drove there. He's actually sleeping in his car, if I'm not if I don't misunderstand. And Sheila's going there with an RV, so we'll have more infrastructure there. And Drea is there with a little camper van. So we're having a little bit of a Rebel meetup, and another one of our team, Lyndon from Calgary, is going. So there's going to be at least 4 Rebels on the ground there. And so for all your ostrich news needs, tune into Rebel. And my phone worked okay out there. I was sort of surprised. Drea has a Starlink, and I think Sheila might also. So we'll have really good Wi-Fi, really good internet for uploading files and stuff like that. Anyways, that's just a report from me showing some of the issues. And it's so frustrating. These farmers actually care about their animals, want them to live, want them to keep going. Oh, is that when I talk? Is that when I show this video? Do I show? Yeah, I do. Do you see behind me? There's like risers, and then the scissor lift over there. And oh, these are some signs. Turn up the volume. Let's play some signs.
So the CFIA herd immunity ignored. There's lots of artwork as well. That's actually quite well done. There's funny T-shirts too, messages of all sorts. This is truly a grassroots reaction. Love wins, beyond the divide, unity, ostrich lives matter. You will regret what you're doing. Freedom, save ostriches, save ourselves. Only evil comes after the innocent. Please come join us. Save the ostrich, science, the cure. Feathers need freedom. If your child got sick in your family, would you kill the whole family? That's pretty brutal, but that's what we're talking about here. No farmers, no food. CFIA prepares for cull. Protect our farmers. The whole world is watching. That, I can tell you, is true. Facts, not fear. We are healthy. We are strong. We are beautiful. We demand testing. We demand the truth. And that's the thing. The farmers have said, look, these birds are fine. Look at them. Here's a few of them going for a bit of a run. Look at it. They have no idea what's coming for them. I hate to say it. And yeah, people here have been camping out. Our friend Tamara Leach was here the other day with a concert. It really has a peaceful, earthy vibe. Here's some more. Every child matters. And these are the names of different ostriches. I'm told that the ostriches have names. Why not? Your pets have names. Farmers sometimes give their cows names. Save the ostriches. These are different names of ostriches. You can see, of ostriches, excuse me. Look at them. Here's one going back and forth. They're funny critters. And because they're so big, they've got a personality. And you can see why people have grown attached to them. Now, one of the reasons for these tall structures, if you can see this scaffolding here, and then there's a scissor lift, I think that's what they call that orange device there, is because, like I mentioned earlier, the government has set up these very tall line of sight barricades. Have nothing to do with health, nothing to do with science or safety, have everything to do with stopping people from filming the massacre of the birds. They've even put in place a no-fly zone to stop people from sending drones or helicopters. That's got nothing to do with health and safety. It's got everything to do with this is a political exercise, and everybody knows it. To follow all our coverage of this issue and to chip into our...
You know, it's really fun out there. I'm not sure if I took videos just walking through sort of the campground. Lots of RVs, lots of campers. Some people just sleeping in their car, some tents, some fancy tents called yurts, sort of in the Mongolian style. There's a kitchen that is extremely well stocked, tons of bottles of water. Someone donated like about a dozen porta potties, and very importantly, the care and maintenance of those porta potties. Like, it's a real operation there. And to match that operation, the police have their operation. And right now, like I say, everything's friendly enough. But when that kill order comes, it will be a very tense time. And there are some people there, as you can see, who are in tears over what's going on. And when people feel that emotionally and about something they feel unjust, and I have to tell you that it's made worse by the fact that the CFIA simply refuses to have any normal conversation. You know, Brett Wilson, if you want to call up his tweet, Brett Wilson is a pretty famous investor. He's part owner of a sports team. He used to be in the oil and gas business. I think he was on Dragon's Den or whatever it was, that Canadian version of that show is called. And he made a tweet the other day in response. He watched the video that I did, and he made a tweet. Yeah, scroll down just a little bit further. And yeah, so look at what he said right about, like, he watched one of my videos and he said, "Hey, Ezra, might you table with the CFIA that I would contribute $100,000 to cover proper testing of these ostriches? Clarity might help getting the Liberal Party to the table. They are spending serious coin in a threat plan to destroy these apparently healthy birds. Now, I wrote back, I'm not sure if you can find it easily, I don't go hunting for it. I said, look, money is not the object here. They're spending an enormous amount of money every day with their operation. They don't care about the money. When this is done, they'll be $10, $20 million in the red. It's not for lack of money. This is a political decision, and we don't know exactly why. I think RFK Jr.'s letter may ironically tell us why. So anyways, my point is, if you care about these ostriches, or at least if you're curious about them, if you wonder why so many people have been riveted by them, I'll be honest with you, they're not the cutest animals. They're not like bunnies or deer or elephants or horses. They're a little harder to love, but they're animals nonetheless, and there's no need to be cruel to animals. There's no need to kill animals senselessly. And it appears that the CFIA is doing that, and that they are impervious to suggestion, advice, compromise, or negotiation, and that they will not disclose their true motives. They would not speak with us in a manner that even the RCMP did. And I put it to you that the CFIA is a political organization, and they have collateral purposes. That's my conclusion after spending some time there. And I'm delighted that Rebel News pretty much owns this story. We've done more journalism about it than any other news source. There are some other citizen journalists on site, and I don't want to overlook them. They are doing the work that much of the mainstream media will not do. The mainstream media has started to cover this story. They realize their great interest in it, but they have typically been liars in service of the CFIA. In particular, CBC was chastised when I was out there. The farmers don't trust CBC. Well, there's a shock. All right, well, I won't take more time on the ostrich matter, simply because I've told you pretty much all I know. And I'm glad that we read that letter from RFK Jr. together. There's a lot of other things going on. And yesterday, I was pleased to have had an opportunity to interview the Premier of Alberta for a few minutes. And I wonder if we have any of those clips handy, Olivia. Olivia actually came in on the weekend to help me record that interview. I'm grateful to her for that. I like Danielle Smith. She likes liberty and she likes provincial sovereignty, two of my favorite things. So we've got a bunch of clips, and let's just play a few of them. What do we have there? Okay, we have... Mark Carney, as you may know, before he became Prime Minister, led an anti-oil lobby group called GFANZ, Global Financial Alliance for Net Zero. And he hates oil and gas. He has 600 stocks in his portfolio, but no Alberta oil and gas. Sort of tells you where he's coming from. And he wants to destroy the oil patch. And if not actively destroyed, he wants to passively destroy it by forbidding any new pipelines to be built and forbidding any tankers to service those pipelines. The province of Alberta doesn't want to die, so it has proposed a new pipeline. I asked Premier Smith what she thinks her chances are that will be approved by Carney. Here's what she said. Manning wrote an op-ed, I think it was in the Globe and Mail, before the election, saying if Mark Carney won, he could be the very last Prime Minister of United Canada. I was sort of shocked by that, but I think Manning was implying that Mark Carney, because of his views on energy, his lifetime's work has been carbon taxes and net zero and stuff like that. Preston Manning was suggesting that if Mark Carney were to be the Prime Minister, that would end Canada. It would be such an attack on Alberta that Alberta would leave. And I know that the referendum legislation in Alberta now has a lower threshold. Are you worried that if Mark Carney holds the line against Alberta, and if this Team Canada Expand Markets thing was just puffery, are you worried that he's going to give winning conditions? Some people would say it's not a worry at all, it's a delight. But do you predict that would give a boost to the separatist movement?
Well, I can tell you that there already is a petition campaign that's been put forward by the former Deputy Premier, Thomas Lukasik. And it's written the other way. It's, do you want to remain in Canada? He is operating under the old rules, had to get about 290,000 signatures in 3 months. And it sounds to me, by recent news stories, that he's almost there. And so that is a referendum on separation, because the question is, are you going to remain in Canada or do you want to leave Canada? That's the implications of that. It's the same question that was asked in the Brexit referendum. And look what happened there. So I've been trying to do everything I can to make people, the status quo is not having enough signatures for a petition campaign like that. But it does look like it is heading in that direction. And when it does come right down to it, we'd be looking at, probably, if the signatures are collected and verified, we'd be looking at having something in the spring. So there is a very narrow window here for the Prime Minister, I think, to take the error out of that side of the vote. But so far, with what'd you say, 204 days, we've seen very, very little progress on any of the issues we've raised.
She had a few other comments about Mark Carney and his, basically he wants the state to manage mega projects, which is a terrible idea. It's a very Soviet idea. Why should other than enforcing the law, why would the government get involved in saying those projects are good and those projects aren't? He's not the chairman of Brookfield Asset Management anymore. His job is not to pick winners and losers. His job is to run the government, not to run the private sector. But that's that very Klaus Schwab World Economic Forum style, where the government gets right involved in the economy. It's a form of socialism, really. I also asked the Premier about, do we have a clip of her talking about Antifa? Because our reporter Alexa Lavoie was assaulted by Antifa on the streets of Montreal a week or so ago. And I note that the government of the United States has, by executive order, added Antifa to their list of banned terrorist groups. And I asked Danielle Smith if she thought we should do the same up here in Canada. Here's what she said. A few weeks ago, by executive order, Donald Trump added Antifa to the list of terrorist organizations under their Department of Homeland Security. We have not done so in Canada under our equivalent registry. Antifa continues to operate. In fact, incredibly, our reporter in Montreal was assaulted by Antifa just a week ago. Are you worried that we are allowing a kind of political violence in Canada? And we saw a horrific example of that in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Do you think that our government should dampen not necessarily the language, but the actions of Antifa, which is a violent organization expressly designed to get physical, to be kinetic? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I can tell you, I don't know the extent to which Antifa and I guess their companion Black Bloc operate in Alberta. I've been watching them in North America for some time. I think they do have a presence in Eastern Canada. One of the things that has happened in Alberta is we have a Critical Infrastructure Protection Act. And so we don't allow critical infrastructure to be blocked. You can't block borders, you can't block rail lines, you can't block highways, and our police do enforce that. So anytime we have seen that kind of action take place, I've been happy to see that our police forces have stepped in. We also enforce trespass. When there were very loud and disruptive protests happening at the university campuses, they said, hold on, you got to be a student to be here, and there's no camping overnight. Right. And so what happened is both the University of Calgary and the University of Alberta said it's fine to protest, but you have to protest within the rules. And they took down whatever blockades or barricades that there would have been, and I think they kept a relatively peaceful environment for the sides to be heard. And that's been our experience in Alberta, is you've got to make sure that there are lines. And the lines are, don't be violent, don't trespass, don't intimidate others, and make sure that you're not inconveniencing people or the economy by blocking critical infrastructure. Maybe there's others who would be able to benefit from doing the same. But I'll be watching it very closely, because there's no place for violence. When you're talking about peaceful protest, it's supposed to be peaceful. That's sort of the underscore, as opposed to just the protest and anything goes. I think that things have gotten a little too polarized in the U.S., and we're doing what we can to support freedom of speech on both sides. But there are some lines.
You know, that's an interesting answer, and I wasn't really thinking that way. I thought she was just going to join in by saying perhaps we should ban Antifa here as well. It was my guess that she would have answered that way, but she had a better answer, which is we don't let that take root in Alberta, and she referred in specific to the two encampments at UC and U of A, University of Calgary, University of Alberta, during the Hamas encampment time when Columbia University Montreal's, McGill, University of Toronto, they had these anti-Semitic hate camps for weeks or months on end. And in Alberta, they were cleared away within 24 hours for reasons of trespass, etc. And it's true. In Alberta, they just have a zero-tolerance approach. There is a Critical Infrastructure Protection Act, if I think I got the name right there. It was designed with Greenpeace in mind more than Antifa. But if you're going to block a pipeline or an oil sands facility, get ready for a serious prosecution. And I think that's right. I actually don't think you need to put Antifa on a terrorism list. You just need to enforce the regular rules. By rules, I mean the criminal code against violence, uttering threats, mischief, trespass, harassment, assault with a deadly weapon. I mean, how many things does Antifa do on any given day? Yeah, add them to the terrorist watch list too, and that way you can maybe track down who funds them. But I actually don't think Canada needs any more laws for anything right now. As Danielle Smith just indicated, they didn't need new laws to clear away the anti-Semitic protests. They just needed a little bit of political will to do it. So let's go from Canada's best premier to one of Canada's worst premiers. And I never want to say definitively this one's the worst or that one's the worst, because the contest is constantly evolving. They're just, each one is worse than the next. But Doug Ford, you know what? Doug Ford had tough words for Trump's 51st state project. And I saw that headline and I thought, is this from 6 months ago? Because actually Trump hasn't mentioned this idea in a long time. I think he alluded to it once last week in like a phone call or something. He's just sort of moved on to other things. He's busy trying to solve Middle East peace. He's busy trying to solve Ukraine-Russia peace. He's got a lot on the go. I just don't think he's paying a lot of attention to Canada right now. But Doug Ford, I guess that's all he's got going for him. So he wants to exhume that carcass and talk about it more, because I guess it's polling well for him. Here's Doug Ford. Take a listen.
And I can tell you one thing, Canadians love Americans, absolutely love Americans. I have a tremendous amount of friends, close friends. As I said, I spent 20 years of my life down in Illinois, and even Republicans, they aren't too happy with what President Trump is doing. So make no mistake about it, it's not everyone else, it's one person causing these problems. Rather than put the AMCAN fortress in or ring around America and the US, America and Canada, and make it the strongest, most resilient, wealthiest, safest jurisdictions in the world, he'd rather come after us. I've never seen anything like it. It's unacceptable. We will never be the 51st state. We'll always be your best friend, your closest trading partner. And again, I just want to thank all the
all right, thanks
governors.
You know what?
Some couldn't make it.
Like, he's still banging on about it, and I keep thinking, why is he doing that? He's not actually involved in the international trade discussions. That's not his jurisdiction. That's the jurisdiction of the federal government. He has no meetings at the White House or the State Department or the trade rep. No one will meet with him. I mean, he's meeting with a state governor who's a Democrat, so that's not that surprising, someone who loves to bash Trump. So why is he mouthing off about this? And I think he was at a Unifor event in a T-shirt, and he had the same thing. Can we play that one? Because that's even dumber. Do you have that clip handy? Yeah, that's the one. Here. I saw this and I thought, oh, is this from 6 months ago? Because he's using the message track from 6 months ago. Take a listen.
How many genders are there?
How many genders?
Who am I here with today?
I'm Doug Ford,
Our
Premier of Ontario.
All of Canada saw when Trump said he wants to make Canada the 51st state of America. Do you remember when you first heard Trump saying this? What was your initial reaction and your initial thoughts?
Initial reaction, we will never be the 51st state. We're a resilient, strong, and prosperous country.
Absolutely. How many genders are there?
How many genders?
Yeah.
You're getting off the topic about this. I don't get into that stuff.
No, okay.
I focus for the people. Okay.
We heard today about the speed cameras. There's going to be some sort of update. There were some MPs that weren't agreeing with what you were saying. So is there any update on that?
About gouging the people. I'm about protecting the people, putting money into their pockets. Absolutely. And all these guys that are collecting a couple $100 million off the taxpayers, they didn't put one single area of traffic calming infrastructure. They're all pocketing the money. It's all about the money. That's what it's about.
Thank you so much.
Holy projection there. You know, that was a terrible interaction. I'm not going to knock the kid. He's obviously just having fun, and he's used to, you know, talking to Gen Z at Sankofa Square. But again, he loves to talk about the 51st state thing, and he loves to bash Trump, because I think there's still enough liberal boomers, which are Doug Ford's main support base, who love that, who eat it up. They're the kind of people who in 2025 are still wearing COVID masks. And that's sort of Doug Ford's base. He's liberal in everything but name. In fact, what really stood out to me was he was asked how many genders there are. And he said, I don't get into that stuff. You mean that stuff? You mean public policy? Because you actually are into that stuff. Ontario is full-blown transgender friendly, as in, if you're a man, you can play on women's sports teams. If you're a man, you can go in a women's prison. If you're a man, you can go in a women's bathroom. So he absolutely is into all that stuff. What he's really saying is he doesn't feel that he needs to justify it or explain himself or defend his anti-women actions. When men are allowed in women's safe spaces, it is an attack on women. To allow a man in a women's bathroom, I shouldn't need to say this. So absolutely Doug Ford gets into that stuff. He just doesn't feel the need to justify himself to the mere public. Doug Ford is so gross. There are probably worse premiers in Canada, but I'm having trouble thinking of who they are right now. Let me see what else we have here in terms of clips. I tell you, it's been so busy running around. As you know, last week I went down to InfoWars in Texas to talk to Alex Jones and then to Harrison Smith about what I regard as an unfortunate outbreak of anti-Semitism on the online right. And I don't know how you thought I did, but you know, I don't normally get into debates like that, but I think I held my own. I wouldn't give myself an A+. I'd give myself like a B-. I don't know if you saw any of those videos. I won't play any more right now unless you have any really handy, Olivia. But I will be having another debate with Owen Schroyer on Wednesday. Owen was on InfoWars. Now he has his own show. And I'll be talking about Israel influence in America. I'm Jewish myself and I'm pro-Israel, but I'm not part of a lobby group. I don't work for any government, Canadian or Israeli. I just think that from a conservative point of view, Israel is really the only liberal democracy in the region. It's the only real ally in the region. Some people call Qatar an ally, but I don't think that meets the test. They are not pro-American in any way. They sponsor Al Jazeera, which is an anti-American network. That's a government broadcaster there. They sponsor Hamas, they're the chief sponsor of that anti-American terrorist group. And none of that region is a democracy. The worst thing about Qatar, I think there's two worst things. First is they spend more than any other country in the world on American universities, planting anti-Semitism, planting wokeness, planting a dictatorship viewpoint in our universities. And the second thing they do is they mooch off America. I know it's pointed out that Israel gets $3 billion a year in military aid, and that's actually the largest amount. Egypt is a close second, but that's outright aid, like a check, which, by the way, is spent on American military weapons. But what about Qatar, which has a full-blown U.S. military base called Al Udeid Air Base? It's where CENTCOM, that's the U.S. Central Command. So Qatar, which is basically a few 100,000 people, and then many more times that foreign indentured workers. The whole Gulf region is like that. Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, UAE. There's a very small number of actual citizens, and then a large number of foreigners, often from the Philippines, India, Pakistan, whatever, who are doing the work and who are allowed to stay there on different types of visas. And in the case of Dubai, it's sort of a kind of Hong Kong. You have a mix of people, and it's I'm not going to say it's liberal, but it's law-abiding, and it's stable enough that countries can bet on being there. Qatar is a few 100,000 Qataris, and they have this mighty U.S. airbase there that costs the U.S. taxpayer about $10 billion a year. Israel doesn't have any U.S. military bases there. Germany, we talked about this the other day, Germany has 40 U.S. bases, about 40,000 American servicemen are still in Germany. American soldiers are still in Japan, and there's military bases. American soldiers are still in South Korea. In fact, if you look at the world, there's more than 100 U.S. military bases, and Donald Trump is talking about going back into Afghanistan to get Bagram Air Base again. So it is true that Israel takes $3 billion a year in military aid, no doubt about it. But that is a fraction of a sliver of a portion of what the U.S. spends in Germany, Japan, Korea, Qatar. And it's a different question. Why is Germany, which is, I think, the fourth richest country in the world, fifth richest country in the world, measured by purchasing power GDP, or absolute GDP, why is America subsidizing Germany's military? Maybe there's a good reason. I can't think of one. And Japan, also one of the wealthiest countries in the world. I love the fact that they're pro-American, but why is America paying for their military bases there? I just do not know. And yeah, that's one of the things I'm going to talk to Owen Schroyer about when we have our debate this week. All right, let's see what else we got cooking here. What do you think is an interesting thing to talk about, Olivia? We have so many news stories here. Is there a clip you think that our viewers would be interested in? Let's take a look at that one. Go ahead and play it, and we'll comment afterwards. Here, take a look. Pierre Poilievre.
Do you think that outlets lean one way or the other?
Yes, they do. And they all know that, and you know that.
What was the question? I think we might have missed.
But I mean,
go back to the very beginning. So this is a private podcast. This is not the CBC, right? This is Poilievre talking about them. Okay, here we go.
Do you think that outlets lean one way or the other?
Yes, they do. And they all know that, and you know that.
I mean, I do know that. But I mean,
you worked for CBC, am I wrong?
Well, I did. Apparently, I still do. I haven't read the paper to see if I'm still employed or not. But
probably won't be after this interview.
After this airs, probably not. But I mean, part of the reason we did the show is to push past kind of gatekeeping. I did live it at CBC. I was told to keep quiet, not rock the boat. I mean, I was not even able to request an interview with you.
Wow.
I wanted to have you on my show. I was not able to do that. But what's your take on the state of our public broadcaster right now?
I think, it's as you describe it. They have an ideological objective, and they carry it out every day. And but you described it very clearly in your comments after you. So have you left, or so I'm not misstating the fact?
I think that they have a story on their website with my resignation letter. But apparently,
well, before you resigned, you described how CBC operated, and I think your assessment is accurate.
That's Travis Janraj, if I'm not mistaken, talking about his life at the CBC. Apparently they think he still works there, although he's saying, no, I don't. That's a weird thing to have a dispute over. But what I took away from that is he wanted to have Pierre Poilievre on the channel, but he was forbidden to do so. By the way, we're sympathetic to conservatives on the show for sure. But if a high-ranking liberal politician, a premier, a cabinet minister, maybe even just an ordinary MP, even though there's hundreds of them, said, I want to come on Rebel News, the answer is, of course. I mean, and if one of our staff, I mean, I suppose I'm the senior reporter, I founded the place, Sheila's our chief reporter, etc. But if a very junior person said, you know, I managed to get a Liberal cabinet minister on my show, I would say, oh, okay, do you need help with questions or something like that? Or what's the plan? Like, I would have questions, what's the plan? How are we going to do this? How did this come? Like, I would have a lot of questions, but I would never in a million years say, no, you can't interview that person, because it would be news. In fact, the very fact that that person would be on Rebel News would be news. I would probably take a keen interest and want to make sure that our most junior reporter lived up to it. Travis Danrad isn't particularly junior. I'm pretty sure he could handle himself. So what would the possible reason be for the CBC vetoing, blocking Pierre Poilievre coming on that show? Other than they just don't want Pierre Poilievre to have unfettered access to their viewers. They're very partisan that way. Hey, earlier today I was talking about the real purpose of these ostriches. They're not for meat, they're not for leather, they are for testing non-mRNA therapeutics. And the fact that they got sick and recovered makes them very interesting, which I think is a flashback to COVID. And I think that may be what this fight is actually about. And I want to talk to you about an advertiser we have that focuses on these things. Here, let me read to you a little bit about twc.health. Does your immune system feel compromised ever since COVID? A new study published in the Journal of Clinical Laboratory Analysis suggests you may not be in the clear even if you feel fine. Researchers analyzed blood from people who have recovered from COVID and found something concerning. Their platelets, which are essential for healthy blood clotting, were not functioning properly even months after recovery. Other studies have found lingering spike proteins in the bloodstream and organs, causing immune system dysfunction and even mitochondrial damage, whether from the virus or mRNA shots. This is why Dr. Peter McCullough developed Ultimate Spike Detox. This doctor-formulated blend includes nattokinase to help break down spike protein, bromelain to support immune health, and turmeric with black pepper to reduce inflammation and repair cells. Take back control of your health today. Head to twc.health/rebel and use code REBEL to get 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/rebel and use REBEL as your code to get 10% off. It's time to own your health. You know, and we know Dr. McCullough, I believe we've interviewed him on the program before. It is almost the top of the hour, and time flies when you're talking about ostriches. I really enjoyed my visit there, and in fact, I would say this. If you're in Alberta or BC or the Pacific Northwest or even further afield and have some time, I would go down there because it's got the vibe of the trucker convoy. I would go down there to meet like-minded people who are interested in freedom, government overreach, interested in the news, interested in grassroots populism. I would go down there to meet everybody. I would go down there to be at a moment in history. And I would go down there to see how this story ends. Now, it is not as grave a story as the trucker convoy when the entire country was locked down, when people were being thrown in prison. I put it to you, I know the difference between an ostrich cull of hundreds of ostriches being killed and the savage authoritarianism of years of COVID. I do know the difference. But there are similarities too, would you acknowledge? And I think being there at this moment, there's a reason why this has captured the imagination of people. The reason why people like Brett Wilson have offered $100,000 to try and fix the problem. The reason why when I was down in Texas, people were asking me about them birds. And I think there is a special moment in the air. And if you've got a car or a camper, an RV, you'll find an instant sense of community. You'll find the most colorful characters you ever did see. You'll be in a very pretty part of the world. And you will be there to watch what happens when ordinary people try to defy the authoritarian government. I don't know how the story is going to end. I'm pessimistic, and the COVID experience has taught me that. As you know, many people challenged the COVID lockdown to the federal court and other courts, and in pretty much every case it was smacked down. I suppose the last case was the most important one, namely that the federal court found the invocation of the martial law under the Emergency Act to be illegal and unconstitutional. So I suppose that was one very important legal case. But Most legal cases were thrown out by judges who were terrified of the virus themselves. I mean, it makes sense. Judges are obedient, judges trust authority, and judges on average are old. So they probably knew more people who were sick because of COVID than young people. Anyways, that's our show for today. I appreciate you tuning in. And Sheila's en route to the Ostriches right now, which is why she can't host the channel. Drea is there and Sid is there, so we're having a whole team. Boy, just saying those words make me want to go back again, and you should consider it too. Until tomorrow, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again, and that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.